Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to Patreon Supporter Spotlight number 41. It's going to be an all tanks episode today, and we've got the pair of tank destroyers and a heavy tank, and I think at least two of them are vehicles I haven't showed on the channel before. Now we're starting off with Menthel in the IKV 65-2, or as it should properly be known, the mouse droid, because look at it, it basically is the mouse droid. Although, to be technically correct, it is in fact the MSE 6 series droid, as seen on all good Death Stars. Yes. So yeah, this is what I call it. I think everybody should call it that, because it just looks like the mouse droid in my opinion. I mean, not exactly like it, but as close as you're going to get to it with all the tanks. And well, as for the thing itself, it's a Swedish tank destroyer, so it's basically a very, very thinly armoured machine with pretty good camo, pretty good mobility, and I think a pretty good gun. I'm fairly certain it's a 90mm gun on this. I did mean to check, and then obviously I've forgotten, but I think it's a 90mm gun just based on the damage he's doing. Now this is a 917 replay, playing on the 917.1 client. That's why there's no ammo counters down there. The replays otherwise between the two versions work fine, but there was just that one little bug, and I didn't save the 917 client just so I could have the ammo counters, because that's like 20 gigabytes of disk space just for the ammo counters at the bottom. So I thought, you know, I can live without it. So he's gotten in what, 2 hits so far. One was a low health kill, and that ELC, well, I think somebody else nobbled him, but Menthel was able to get in a hit, and he's setting himself up in a position where he can hit stuff on the field, he can maybe hit stuff on this side of the town, but enemy tanks have to push through. That's kind of the problem with machines like this. They're good on the defensive, but you cannot go on the offensive with them. They don't have the hit points, they don't have the armour. So you have to do this. You have to play quite a passive role quite a lot of the time. Now in this particular game, I mean, I'm showing you this replay, so as you can guess, yes, the enemy tanks are going to be coming to him, but it's kind of a rather drawn-out game in some ways. This isn't a game where there was a quick collapse of one team and all of a sudden he gets to see a lot of action. No, this was a slightly more kind of paced-out affair, and that means that there's a good chance he might get some decent damage out of this. Having said that, I'm not going to give too much away though. And as for the damage, you're just going to really have to wait till the end, because once again, because it's an older or a slightly older replay, it's not got the working damage counters. So the enemy team are starting to make some moves, and that T-150 has just, I think the Hellcat either missed or like tracked him or something, but either way that T-150 is a bit screwed right now. He's in a slightly different position, so I think Menthel tracked him and then he repaired, and then maybe the Hellcat retracked him. But anyway, you'll note maybe, you might have noticed already, yeah, he doesn't have Sixth Sense. So it might be 100% crew, but it is not a crew with any crew skills yet. So he's got to play even more cautiously than he already has to begin with, given that the fact it's a very fragile tank destroyer. He's also got to make educated guesses as to when he's spotted. So his team's on the back foot at this point. They're all rather badly damaged. They've got one heavy tank left, the OI Experimental, but he's in a pretty bad way. He's just been surrounded, and all that's left is mediums, an ELC, and a Menthel here, and the Hellcat. None of them have particularly great amount of armour or hit points, and Menthel especially having taken a hit from that KB-1S. Fortunately, it was the 85mm rather than the derp, because derp guns kill these things very quickly. So another hit into the KB-1, leaving him on very low health. Of the enemy tanks, I mean, most of them aren't going to be able to do a huge amount of damage if they're firing AP. The VKs, though, if they have the 88mm, the short 88s, they can do around about the same amount of damage he can. A little bit less, but you know, 220 per hit. They could roll high enough to one-shot him at this stage. I'm not sure if the armor on this thing is good enough to repel, like if the the short 88 HE was fired in his direction, if his armour would be able to resist that or not, or whether that would be a penning hit. I'm not sure quite how bad the armour on this is, I just know it's fairly bad. So that's the Churchill finished off. The VKs are rather lower health at this point, but they're also, I've just lost the ELC, and the T-3485 is looking a little bit surrounded, and oh, there he goes. So it's just down to the Stridswagen, Menthol, and the Hellcat, who's a little further back. But they have inflicted their toll on the enemy as well, even though it's 3 versus 5. They're in a reasonably good position right now, and none of the remaining enemies are especially mobile, so they're not going to suddenly get a light tank coming up round behind them across the field. And there's one down, so that's useful. So yeah, the enemy tanks, none of them are particularly flexible in terms of their mobility, so that is definitely something in their advantage. So that's the Churchill 3 gone to the Stridswagen, and it's at this point that Menthol actually platoons up with that Hellcat. Now, I think that's just because the Hellcat offered, and I have a feeling it's just because, you know, if Menthol can get another kill, that's a chance at a brothers in arms. And if he also, you know, platooned up with if they roped in the Stridswagen into the platoon as well, that could still be a brothers in arms, but it's a little bit less certain at that point, because then they'd all 3 of them need 3 kills. But as it is, the Stridswagen has just got himself a 3rd kill, and that leaves this VK here, who is looking in Menthol's direction. Ooh, let's back off. Menthol gets in the hit though and sets him up for another kill for the Stridswagen. So this last VK, this is Menthol's final chance for a 3rd kill and the Brothers in Arms medal. So his first one goes low. I don't know if the Hellcat holds back or if he is just like staying safe and letting the VK come to him, or if he was genuinely trying to let Menthol get that final kill for the medal. But either way, Menthol did, so that was an ace mastery, high caliber, a Confederate, and the Brothers in Arms, which is a rather nice result. And 3,000 damage in this thing with its 90mm gun, you know, that's pretty good going. It's a fairly fragile machine, so yeah, he had to be fairly campy and passive to get that, but that's what you do in these things for the most part. There are times and places when there's maybe 1 or 2 low health enemies left around that you could afford to then get on the move and use that good mobility and just absorb the hit. But this was not one of those games. Next we have the other tank destroyer, and this is IB the One True Nub, also known as Super Ranger to some of you, and he's in the Object 263. Now, this is a somewhat older replay. This is 9.15, and this is actually the last replay from tanks that I've got for him for the time being. I don't know how much I should say, but he's off in a foreign country at the moment where playing on EU is not really possible, because he's rather a long way away. So I've been playing with him a little bit on NA, and we basically both have equally bad ping on the NA server, but it more or less works. You can get away with sort of 180, 200 ping on World of Tanks, and you will notice it sometimes. And just occasionally it will work against you, but for the most part it's still quite playable. There's not a lot of online kind of, I don't want to say first-person shooter exactly, because could you call World of Tanks that? Kind of. Games where you run around shooting things. That's a category, right? Yeah, there's not many that are that forgiving in terms of ping, and maybe that's an appeal of World of Tanks for a lot of people. So anyway, we're on Pilsen. They've discovered that there are basically no enemy tanks on this side of the map, apart from the enemy artillery, who's probably busy cussing out his team for not going on this side, and not realising that he himself has this magical W key that means he can go to a flank where his allies are. But that's advanced stuff, so let's not be too judgmental. So they've all pressed round, because although there are a couple of enemy tanks in more or less defensive positions, this is turning into a bit of an odd one. Now, I have seen matches like this myself, where you get teams doing a kind of carousel around Pilsen, but it's kind of odd because there are a clump of tanks on the 0 line. They're not super aggressively pushing towards IB the One True Nub's team's cap. But they do have some friendly defending tanks there as well. So it's shaped up to be a somewhat odd kind of situation, because they're not... The enemy team aren't grouped anywhere particularly en masse. They're spread out on this side of the map, and his own team, having pushed ground, they're now kind of equally... Like, it's two very broad fronts. There's no discernible flanks in this game. It's just, you know, a big broad stripe down the middle, more or less, of the map, where the two teams are meeting each other and fighting each other all the way up and down. So it's a slightly unusual situation. I've not seen Pilsen develop quite like this before. And that's one of the reasons why people play World of Tanks, is even though Wargaming have tried different game modes in the past and are, you know, going to try another new game mode in the very near future, just the random battles, just the variation you can get on maps that you're very familiar with, teams can end up doing very unexpected things. So he wants to go for this IS-6 and maybe get some shots into the Skoda, but as good as his armour is, well, it's mostly good to the front. So he very quickly realises that he needs to help tackle that other IS-6 to his north first, which he does. He gets a nice hit in there. And then another nice hit. There's definitely some Hand of Stalin in this one. Like, that shot on the Skoda was pretty lucky, but that's not going to be the luckiest one by a long shot. So he finishes off that IS-6, and with the alpha on this gun, you can only begin to guess what kind of damage he's got right now, but it must be a good few thousand already. And at this point he decides to push in over to this flank, and possibly he knows that or he knew that he was that was just dirty. Possibly he knew that he was at risk of taking a hit in doing so, but he may well have just decided it was worth the risk and that he had the hit points to take that hit. Now this is a bit of a problem. That's a hull down E5. And although the armour on this is very good, you can kind of guess what's going to happen, can't you? So the fact that the E5 is full health, that's not so much a problem in of itself. I mean, they do seem to be decisively winning, but it's that that distinctive fizz sizzle, or at least I think it's a distinctive fizz sizzle, which has oh, there we go, that definitely was. So yeah, the E5 is just completely, you know, ignoring his armour, and so IB the One True Nub has to back off a little bit, but yeah, the rest of his team, I mean, they've pushed around. Their artillery's actually capping, and they're closing the net on what is now the last tank. So he really doesn't have to take any risks here. He can just let his allies come in, and maybe he'll get a final shot on this T1 10E5, but he clearly doesn't feel inclined to just give this guy a free last kill. So, oh, and there we are. He gets a very brief opportunity, and once again, like, that was not fully aimed. He had a good number of lucky shots in this one where he just pulled the trigger at the right moment, and RNG said, okay, you can have that one. Some games are like that. Other games are the inverse, where you sit and aim carefully and nothing seems to hit. But in this case, no, he did do very well, and although there are some decent damage counts on the rest of his team, I mean, the next best has got nearly 5,000. He is clearly at the top there. 6.2k, 4 kills, and 1,068 base XP. And even with some of the snapshots, he only missed 1 in that entire game. So, yeah, there you go. Sometimes RNG really does favour you. Helps if you're driving a Russian tank, of course. Lastly, we have this, and this is, again, a tank I've not showed on the channel before. It is the new-ish, at this point, Tier 8 German Heavy on the mouse line. It's kind of a proto-mouse. It's the VK1001P. And I don't have this myself, haven't driven it. I bought the Tier 9, the Moistjen, I think I'm saying that right, but I didn't then have enough credits to buy this. It does, however, have pretty much the absurd armour you would expect, and also quite a big gun. This, alongside with the Object 252, has 440 alpha. And if the 252 had just gotten that alone, I think that would have been fairly power creepy. I mean, it kind of is power creepy. It definitely is power creepy, the 252. But the fact there's a regular tank with that alpha, I mean, that's also kind of power creepy, but at least it's not quite as, you know, you can only get the biggest gun on a tier 8 heavy if you pay actual money for it. Kind of power creepy, if that makes any sense. I don't know, it might not, it's a little bit late. So looking for another shot, but unwilling to just take a snapshot there. There's no artillery, and there's only one enemy tank destroyer, so this is actually quite comfortable for this tank. Stop picking on the ELCs, King Trigon. Did I say it was King Trigon? This is King Trigon, by the way, everybody. Yeah, apparently King Trigon hates ELCs. I don't know why. But yeah, he's obviously noticed that there's not really anything that could stop him from just driving forwards and angling and doing his best here. Although he has taken an APCR hit from the IS-3. But of more pressing concern is the fact that the enemy team is seriously trying to cap, because mines at high tiers is just so much fun, right? So he could, and probably should at this point, be trying to just press round to the cap. I mean, the defender's going for it, and the defender's got the speed to do it. Somebody has also managed to reset. Maybe one of the enemy actually drove out of the cap. But there are a couple of the enemy team that are seriously trying to cap this one out. But I think King Trigon gets a little... He's taken a couple of hits, but nothing serious. He took, what, one from the IS-3, was it two from the IS-3, and I think maybe... Has he taken one from the... I've not been paying attention. But yeah, if he takes a hit from the T-25-2, it's not such a big deal. And hopefully the IS-2 would be able to then nail him while he was doing it. But yeah, he tarries a little bit long there, considering that the enemy team is seriously trying to cap. So the defenders used his superior mobility to just plough right round ahead. And this is the point where I was expecting the T-25-2 to start taking pot shots at him with access now to his side and rear armour. But instead, that isn't going to happen, at least not just yet. So King Trigon can now just push up. So that's one of the enemy defenders down. This other one, the last remaining of a top tier defender platoon. They actually had two defenders and a 252 on the enemy team, but their own team had a defender as well, who's racked up 2 kills so far. But yeah, they haven't maybe had the impact that you would imagine they would with this matchmaking. Anyway, Trigon's made it to the cap, but he's rapidly running out of allies. There was a bit of action on the 1-2-3 line, and his own team has unfortunately collapsed. The IS-2's moved up with him. The defender died to I'm not sure who, but the T-25-2, as you can see, is now once again paying attention to him. It's not so much an issue as it turns out, though, because they are all bouncing. So Trigon is at half health. He's got one ally left. The Skoda that was to the west has died, and they're now both in the cap circle themselves with what is that? A Pattern KR, a T-25-2, an OI. The OI actually might be a little bit of a problem if it has the dirt gun, and a Stridsvagn 74. So what I would do if I was in the enemy team's situation is try and pick off the IS-2 as the easier target, and then and there we go, that's the Pattern KR who is doing a number on the IS-2, and then just gang up on Trigon. Now the KR takes out the IS-2, so that part was successful, but Trigon got in a hit himself. But as far as I can tell, the T-25-2, who is, to be fair, very low health, he is in the exact same position and just sitting up there pinging shot after shot after shot off Trigon's armour. And the KR was the only one that seemed to actively be trying to engage him, maybe a little incautiously. Maybe he should have waited for his allies to show up, because that was the main threat, and Trigon's now taken him out. And these last 3 remaining tanks, they don't seem to be particularly inclined to get up in his face. Although, to be fair to them, this is a big, heavily armoured German heavy tank, and they're all in lower tier tanks, which don't have such good guns. So the OI turns out not to have the derp. Yeah, so Trigon really doesn't have to worry about that guy unless it gives him like flat side armor, maybe. The Stridswagen, he's probably got good enough APCR, again if he gets flat surfaces, but they would have to work together and basically try and bait Trigon's shots and then do damage at that point. But yeah, it's just a little too uncoordinated, and all these people they're randoms. You know, the enemy team only had one platoon who weren't all that effective, and with OI down, I mean, it really looks like Trigon's going to carry this, doesn't it? And it's not just this tank. You could do this in this kind of situation maybe in a KV4, but you wouldn't hit as hard with a KV4. That's the thing. Or I'm trying to think what else there is at tier 8 that just, you know, could blat things and has this much armour. An OHO, I guess, but the OHO is probably not quite this mobile, although I'm not going to pretend this is a mobile tank, but compared to this I bet the OHO isn't even as good. So yeah, there's not that many tanks at tier 8 where you could do what Trigon has done and still be at half health and have bounced over 7,000 damage. So yeah, this is turning out to be quite the carry, really, isn't it? It's not been flawless. I mean, he did take maybe longer than he should have to actually get to the cap circle, and it really was his allies resetting and buying time for him to get there that allowed him to do it without the enemy team capping out. But yeah. So if you're wondering what he's doing at this point, by the way, he's trying to break contact, and that's smart. There's not, I mean, because this is encounter, they can't cap really quickly, and there is still plenty of time left. So he's basically just forcing them to make a move if they want to spot him, and so that then maybe gives him a chance to take shots, because if he's just trying to chase a tier 6 medium tank around a house, that's not going to, like, you could do that for literally 6 minutes and it would be a draw. And Trigon rather wants to win. So there we go. The Stridswagen rather incautiously popping out to take a shot. And that was a bit of a lucky snapshot from Trigon. But it did the job. And now it's just this very low health T25 too, who's on just a smidgen of hit points. And he can't even run around things in the same way that the Stridswagen could. And there we go. Yet another reasonably lucky shot for that final kill. I'm sure he would have been able to do it in the time anyway, but that saved him a lot of having to hunt the guy down. That last kill, by the way, that was his 8th kill as well, so Radley Walters. So that was an ace tanker, Radley Walters, high caliber, steel wall, defender, and a Spartan medal, I believe. Was it Spartan? Maybe cool-headed. I can't remember. The one that you get for bouncing lots of shots in a row. 4,867 damage done. 1,556 base XP. Not bad. The defender on their team did pretty well as well, and I didn't quite catch who that was in 3rd place. But yeah, there were some people on his team that did all right, but they did come perilously close to losing that one on a cap. But that's more down to the map itself, because mines at the higher tiers just sucks. Mines should be like, I want to say Wide Park? Yeah, Wide Park. You shouldn't really be able to see it beyond tier 6. Or maybe even lower than that. But no, you can still see it up to tier 10, and isn't it jolly fun for everyone? So that's it for Supporter Spotlight number 41. You can hit the like button if you enjoyed it. You can leave any comments below. You can sub to my channel if you haven't already. And, as always, stay tuned for more.